On today's show, we're going to be making a beautiful prong set statement ring. Oh, you're going to really enjoy this one. Let's make some jewelry. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm the WrapMaker, Jim McIntosh. Now, today's show is really going to be kind of a special one. Everybody really likes a nice statement piece, and it usually has a nice big stone in it. But today we're going to be making a statement ring, and it's going to have a nice big cabochon that we're going to work with. And again, I'm working with sterling silver. You guys, I keep saying I love sterling silver. Now, a couple of shows ago, when we made the solitaire ring, I introduced you to just kind of an introduction to wire smithing. Well, today we're going to be using some wire smithing techniques to make a nice prong setting to go on this ring. And it's not as hard as you think. It's really simple. We've got simple tools, simple materials we're going to be using. Also, I wanted to let you know that soon, very soon, I've got a book coming out on wire smithing. I've been working on it now for several months trying to get this done. So another new book coming out that's going to help you see just how simple it is to create with this new wire wrap technique. Now don't forget, you can still pick up a copy of my current book, Wire Wrapping Simple Techniques for Beautiful Designs. There's a link below. This is a great introduction. It's got some great projects in it that you're going to love making, whether you're new or you've been making jewelry for a while. There's something in here for everyone. All right, so check that out as well. So let's go ahead and we'll start taking a look at the tools and the materials we're going to need for this project. So here's everything you're going to need to make this project. These are all of the tools. Hopefully these are all the tools that you're going to need for this project. So let's go over them real quick. You're going to need something to measure with. So I've got my ruler here. This one does measure both in inches and metric. So we've got both here. And you're probably going to need both, actually. I've got my tape, which is kind of like my favorite tool, because this really does help hold everything together as you're working on it. So nice painter's tape is great. I got my scissors to be able to cut my painter's tape off. I'm going to need a pair of really good wire cutters. These are flush cutters. So these are nice narrow point to them, narrow cutting edge. That's going to give you a nice clean cut. We're going to be smoothing our wires with this tool here. These are nylon jaw pliers. We're working with some larger wire. So it's really nice to have these to kind of help protect your fingertips. You can draw the wire through this to straighten it out, and it won't hurt your fingers at all. So this is a great tool to have. We're going to also need a fine tip permanent marker. That's going to mark all of our wire. And then this is the tool. We're wire wrapping, so this is the tool you need. And these are WrapMaker pliers. This makes the job of wire wrapping so much easier. Now, I have a couple of handles types that I carry on my website. These are the cushion comfort handles. They also have ergonomic handles as well. Those handles are blue. But I like these because I kind of have a bigger hand, and so I like to have something that fits into my palm a little better than the ergonomic ones, which are a little bit shorter. And we're going to be doing some wire smithing, as I said. So I've got my flat hand file, and we're going to be using this edge, this side here, this cutting edge here, to make our cut across our wires. So this is another good tool to have. And then last but not least, well, actually we got two more. So we've got our wrap and tab pliers. We're going to use this to make our initial shape of the ring. And then we're going to finalize the shape with a ring mandrel. And this is a steel ring mandrel. I prefer this steel only because it gives you a nice surface to hammer against. So you can get a really good hammer, and we will be using hammer. We'll be shaping the ring a little bit with a rawhide mallet as well. So that's all of the tools that we should be needing for this project. Let's take a look at the materials. These are the materials we're going to need for this project. We're going to, the ring is primarily going to be made up of 18 gauge square wire. This gives you a nice firm, using square, gives you a nice firm ring when you're done. And it wears really well too, even though this is square wire. So we're using 21 gauge, excuse me, 18 gauge dead soft square wire. I'm using sterling today. And I'm also have the wrap wire. This is 18 gauge, half round, dead soft half round wire. So this is going to make all of our wraps. And then I said in the introduction that we were going to be making a statement ring. And I have got quite the statement piece here. This is a nice, large cabochon, and it's beautiful, and it's going to look great in sterling. So this is a good size. It's probably about 1.5 inches long, maybe 30 millimeters. So a nice piece, that's going to make a nice statement. That's it, just 3 materials for this project. To begin this project, it's really like every other project, we got to cut some wire. So let's take a look and see. I'm going to cut 2 of the 18 gauge dead soft square wire. I'm going to cut it at 5 inches each. So let me cut 2 wires. So here's 1. And there is number 2. The next thing you want to do is you want to straighten your wire out. So what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be using these nylon jaw pliers. And like I said, with this heavier gauge wire, these are always so much better to use. So I'm just going to give them a nice straighten. We're not looking for perfectly straight. We're looking for relatively straight. So there's 1. And the other one. I'm just really just kind of taking that curve out of it. Is really what I'm doing. All right, so we've got these relatively straight. The next thing we want to do is we want to attach these together, because you got to remember we're making a ring, and it's easier to make a ring out of 2 pieces if you put them together and then form the ring and then do all the work on each individual one. Okay, so hopefully that makes some kind of sense. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll tape these together. I'm going to cut a couple of flags out of this tape here. So there's 1, and here is number 2. And I'm going to start by just lining one end up and then attaching them together with the painter's tape. Got a finger of the way there. All right, so got them together. We're going to now make a little flag here. And then we're going to start here at this flag where it'll go all the way up. You do this because you want to make sure you're not crossing them over, but also the wires aren't getting twisted either. We want these to be flat. So second flag over here. There we go. And then you can always check to make sure you can run this over them again, just to make sure that you've got them together and nice and uniform in shape. So that's what we got right here. The next thing you want to do is you want to find the middle. So we cut 2 of these at 5 inches. So we're going to take a fine tip permanent marker. We're going to mark the center of these, and that would be at 2.5 inches. So right here at 2.5. The next problem we have is we got to start to shape or form the ring shape. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to be doing this. We're going to be making a size 7 ring. That's the size I'm making today. Because of the way that this is formed, we're going to be shaping some of this. We're going to be wrapping the bottom. It's going to take up some extra room. To kind of compensate for that, we're going to make the ring a size larger. So I'm making a size 7, but all of my measurements are going to be at a size 8. Trust me, it works. as I always say, there is a madness to my method. So just keep up with me. All right. This is really easy to do. So let's go ahead and we'll form that ring shank. All right. Let's do that. To form the ring shank, what we're going to be using is I'm going to start with my step maker or my wrap and tap pliers rather. And I'm just going to put my wrap and tap. And what I want to do is I want to use this centered barrel, this middle barrel. It's a 16 millimeter barrel. And I'm just going to hold on to it. And I'm going to bring both ends around. And then I'm going to cross them over one another on the other side. And I want these to be kind of tight up against that barrel. Just like this. This is going to give us the initial shape. See, so that's not a size 7, that's not a size 8. To refine that, we're going to use our ring mandrel. So I'm going to put it on here, and look, it was just about an 8. So look at that. So that worked out really well. Now, if you're making a smaller size, I would probably start with the wrap and tabs here. If you don't have wrap and tabs, you can just go ahead and start right on the ring mandrel for that. So we've got ring mandrel away here, wrap and tabs out of the way. So both sides are now, they're crossed over one another. We need to uncross them. So take your wrap makers and put them right here in the center where you want to start that. And you want to kind of look at it and notice this side of the jaw is even with the bottom of this. And that's kind of where you want this. You want just a little bit over the center, and you want to bend it outward 90 degrees. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side. We're going to kind of line it up. So notice we're going to line this up so it's right about here. And we're going to open that up just like that. So on both sides should be at the center of the ring shank, pointing outward. So we don't need this tape anymore. So we can take this off, because now what we want to do is we want to work on each of these individually. We're going to be doing a couple of things. So take the tape off and then separate the two halves just like that. And then we want to add some more tape because we're going to be doing some filing on this. Now, remember, I said that what we were making is we're using a wiresmith technique. Wiresmithing basically just uses a hand file that will cut across to make a nice little, just a slight groove. That little groove is where the wrap wire is going to sit. That will help so that everything doesn't move around like this. It makes a stronger piece. And that's kind of the secret behind all of wiresmithing technique. This wiresmithing technique, that's kind of the secret behind the whole thing, is cutting that groove. And you want to be sure that you don't cut too much away. You only want to cut maybe a 0.5 millimeter, just enough for that wrap wire to sit into. And we want each of the ring shanks to be stable enough for us to cut across with hand file. All right, so that's why we need some nail tape. So let's go ahead and we'll cut our tape again. And we're going to put those on individually on each of the ring shank halves. All right, so we'll start with this one. I'm going to go kind of towards the end here. Put this on. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Bring them together. Put both sides up. Oops, you're on here. There. This is what we've got. Now we need to figure something out for our stone. This stone, I believe, is like, it's about 40, looks like it's 42 millimeters. This is a kind of a long stone. You're going to want at least a 1/2 inch wrap in the center of this. I wouldn't go any much more than a 1/2 inch, so which would be about 12.5 millimeters. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to prepare a cut and wrap area that's about a 1/2 inch on the stone. And then we're going to take and mark this on here. We're going to be putting a cut and wrap area right here from where it comes together on the ring shank up towards the wire end. So a 1/2 inch, I'm going to measure and make a mark right there. That's a 1/2 inch there. I'll do the same thing over here. I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch. This will kind of make a spot for the stone to sit, but will also hold everything together. So we've got both of, oops, I'm throwing things. So we've got both of them there and a 1/2 inch. Usually when I'm doing this, I am using either a bench pin or I'm over here at the edge of my my work table to do this filing. But what I'm going to do is I've got just this piece of rubber. It's just a sanding block is what it is. And I've got my flat hand file. And I'm going to cut across from starting here where they come together all the way up at this line. And one of the things I want to do is first I want to show you that there's a serrated edge on all 4 of these sides of this hand file. But what I like to do is wherever I'm going to begin and end, I like to take the edge, the small edge, and I like to just do a couple of passes on here just to kind of put a line there. And this kind of creates a shoulder that it's going to sit in. I like to do it over here on the other side. Just put this little line there. Makes a definite shoulder there. That's going to be a kind of a stopping point. And then I'm just going to file everything in between. The way files work, and this is important to know, is that you want to push. You don't want to rub. Rubbing will make the file dull faster. It won't do it immediately, but it will kind of kill some of the life of the hand file. And all we're doing is we're just kind of cutting across. I'm trying to make just a flat area here. Just kind of look from the side to make sure you've got just enough of this away. I'm just going to take just a touch away. And I'm not pushing very hard. I'm letting the file do all of the work. And then you can turn it around and this will make sure that it's level. So you turn it around and kind of go over it, just a quick pass to make sure it is done. From the side, you can see just barely a 1/2 millimeter has been taken away. We'll do the same thing with the other side. We're going to make the same marks. Don't get into the same habit that I got myself into. Is I stabilize, stupid me stabilizes the file with my thumb. See where my thumb is? That's not the greatest thing to do. I apologize for that, but it's a habit I have, bad habit I have. So here we've got both of them completed, finished cutting into both of these. The next thing we need to do is we're going to join these together. Now, we need to decide which one of these is going to be the inside and which is going to be the outside. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take them and we're going to just join them together like this. So one of them has to go on the outside of the other. So I'm going to take the tape off both of these. We're going to retape them in just a minute, but I want to take the tape off and we're going to separate them, just one of them, slightly. But before we do that, we actually do need to bend one of these because they're not going to fit together and allow us to wrap them together. So I'm going to take the one I'm going to separate. And I'm going to put my WrapMakers right here where it's about the spot where they come together. And I'm just going to take and push the ring shank away from the cut area. The cut area is going to go underneath the stone. So that's what we wanted. So I'm just going to separate this just a little bit. And then we're going to put these together. What we want to do is we want to line up the two cut areas by each other. And we also want to put the outside ones over the inside shank. So let me just kind of set this up just a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're going to put them together so they line up, just like this. Now let's take a piece of painter's tape, and we're going to put it across, and then across, and then join it to the ring. So there, and we're going to put on the ring shank over here. This will kind of hold that in place. And then I'm going to go over here, and notice I did not do it right. Isn't that how I do most things? I'm going to show you what the problem is. You notice this is going under. That's going to be impossible to. So we want it on top of. There we go. We want it on top of the ring shank so that we can move things around a bit. If we were to try to put this together without doing that, it would cause a major problem. So let's start over here. Now that we've got it where we want, let's put it over here, and we're going to bring it around the ring shank and just kind of tape it to itself here. And if you need to, you can put another piece of tape over here. I kind of like to put a piece of tape on here just to hold the ends together as we're wrapping so things don't spread out on us. So here's our setup. So we've got one that's bent and it's going on the outside of the second one. So now that we've got the two halves together, this is kind of what the setup looks like. We need to wrap that area right here where we cut and wrapped it. Before you do that, it's a good idea to just kind of take your WrapMakers and make sure everything is squared up in that cut and wrap area so they're nice and flat together. And we're going to cut, I'd say probably about a good 8-inch piece of 18 gauge half round wire. So I've got a pretty good sized piece of half round. And we're going to position WrapMakers just outside of that wrap area. Now be careful you don't wrap that tape in with this wrap. It'd be impossible. Oh, it's very difficult to get out and you'll fight with it, and it's not fun. So flat side of the wire goes against the piece. We're going to put it in the short side here. And we're going, once it bottoms out, we'll put just a little extra pressure on the handles. And now we're going to start our wrap. And as you wrap, you want a good tight wrap. So make 4 wraps. 3, 4. And then we're going to set it. Now when you set it, it's going to spread all of that back out. Just see how what just happened? We want to spread, make sure that we've got this right in that wrap area and that everything is flat. So we're going to continue, make a couple more. Set this again. And then we'll just finish it up. Here we go. We're 1. Let's finish it up right about there. And I got this is a pretty good sized piece of wire left over. So I put my curve back in it, my old curve. I'm going to cut it half the width of the wrap. Set that wire to hide. I can use that again. And cut off the side as well. By cutting this on so that it's up against the stone, what it's going to do is it's going to hide that wrap. People are going to be kind of amazed at the wrap. So just check your wrap, make sure it's how you want it. I have to bring this together just a little bit. There. Let's see the thing about these WrapMakers. You can position them and push things together. There we go. All right, so it's safe to take this tape off. And don't get in this habit that I have of just throwing it on the floor, because here in my studio, I clean the floor up occasionally, and it's covered with blue tape, as everyone that's here with me can attest to. But let's take all of our tape off. Very good. So we want to bend this second one, this second shank, we want to do the same thing. So we want to bend it down as well. So position your WrapMakers and then bend that down. Just like that. So this is what the setup looks like. We've got both our ring shanks facing down. we've got our prongs here. We need to set up our prongs. And as we usually do with this, is we bring them out to about a 45-degree angle so that it sink right on the stone. We'll adjust this where as needed, but just to bring these out. So it's 45 degrees. Now we can take our stone, or place our stone on our work surface in front of us. We're going to we need to get another piece of tape. We want kind of a longer piece, but what we need to do is we're going to set this on our stone and tape them together so we can mark where our prongs are going to go. So just going to take about a 3 or 4 inch piece of tape. I'm going to pick up a narrow strip down it. It's probably about almost a half inch. Let's see what we got. And just over a 1/4 inch wide. Save the rest of that tape. Now I want you to take the tape and put it right over that wrap. So notice I went on the inside in between the 2 shanks and up over the wrap. And now I want to find where I want to put this. Now I want to put this way. Let's see which wires these are. So I want to put the outside wires. These are the outsides. I want to put them at the top because the top it is wider. And you want to kind of center it on the stone where you want that wrap to sit. So right here should be pretty close. Let's see. We're going to adjust this as we go. So just kind of stick it to it temporarily and move things down. So yeah, it's not centered. So all that kind of move it. The important thing is that this is going to help center it. If I can get the stone to cooperate, we'll be all right. Pardon the back of my head. I just want to look down it and make sure that I'm getting centered. There we go. That looks like it's pretty close to the center. So let's put this over the stone. We just basically tape this to the stone. Yeah, I was way off. But not way off, but I was off. So let's fix it. I am. And you can measure this too. You can kind of see, okay, I've got, so many centimeters, 10 centimeters here. I've got pretty close to 10 here. All right, so now that we've got it secured down, we can bring our prongs out again. We want to move them so that they are going to cover the stone evenly. And we need to make sure we cover the top and the bottom of the stone. Not there again. Same place. You get it from the other side as well. See, so notice I've got some things going on here that are not right. Okay, they're even. They're even. All right. So we need to mark where we're going to bend these prongs. So we're going to take our fine tip permanent marker, and where the wire comes out from the stone, we're going to make a mark on each of these prongs. This is where we're going to bend each prong so that it sits on the stone and holds our stone in. Remember, we're making a large statement piece. This is a nice, big stone. It's going to sit really well. And look at this. This isn't how the fan's going to be. But just imagine that being worn. It's going to be a great ring. All right, so we've got our prongs marked. Now that they're marked, we can just double check to make sure you've got everything where you want it. Things kind of have a tendency to move around. All right, so it looks good. So let's take our tape off so that we can bend these prongs. All right, so let me show you that. So our prongs are marked at each of those wires. To bend the prongs, I always kind of go to the inside of that mark. Try to do right on the marks. So notice where I've got it. I'm just going to just set it back up again. There we go. So bend these prongs 90 degrees toward me. See, so let's do that into all 4 prongs. Now notice the marks we made are kind of at an angle because the stone is curved. So we're going to get that curved effect. So make sure you're bending it with that curve because we want these to point toward the center of the stone. We don't want them squared up, but we want them facing the stone, or facing the center of the stone, excuse me. Okay, last one. There. So we've got all 4 prongs. Kind of looks like a bug. To me, that's what it looks like to me. But now let's put the stone in, and let's see if it sits squarely on here. It looks as if now if you need to adjust these, right now is the time to do that. So take a look at your piece before you do anything else and make sure that everything is where you want it. Because once we bend these, and you want to make sure that this area here at the bottom, I'm gonna point to this area right here under the stone. We want to make sure that this sits flat. So that's what we want. See how it sits flat against the bottom of the stone? That's going to be important. So make sure all 4 of them are that way. Make sure all 4 of them are in the right place before moving on. So we're going to check them all 4. That one's good. That one's good. So I think that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty good. When you're setting the prongs over the piece, the thing you want to keep in mind is we're going to work in opposites. So we're going to start to bend the prong over the stone on the top wire, push it over, then you go to the opposite side and push that over. What that does is that helps keep everything centered as you're doing it. And we're only going to just do this first setting just to push everything over the stone to hold it in, and then we're going to cut the prongs. We're going to take the stone out, and we're going to shape the prongs a little bit so that it looks better, but it's also nice and smooth so that it doesn't hurt anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody with this, all right? So let's do that right now. We're going to I'm going to start here in the top left, right here, and I'm going to push the prong over the stone. Then I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm going to push. And notice I'm kind of pinching everything. I'm pinching the stone. I'm pinching the middle of the setting. So I don't want anything to move out of place. Push this guy over there. Then we're going to go to this other one, this other top one. We'll push that over. And then finally, this last prong we will push over the stone. So if we look at it, the stone is in there. Everything is flat, how it should be. And the stone is supported pretty nicely. Everything's nice and supported. The next thing we want to do is we want to cut the prongs. Now, cutting the prongs actually, let me do one more thing. I want to look at the back and make sure that everything. See, now notice, I want you to notice something. This prong and this prong are kind of not. They're not even in the setting. The stone shifted ever so slightly as I was doing that. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I reset this so that everything is right. See, that's how important. That's why it's so important to check everything before moving on. All right, so I think I'm kind of happy with that. That's good. Okay. To cut these prongs, it's kind of difficult cutting prongs. It's not hard to do, but the important thing is making sure the prongs are even over the stone. That's the important thing. So I kind of eyeball it, but you can also take and measure. Again, as I say all the time with wire, it's better to cut too long or leave a little extra wire than to cut it too short. You can't add wire, especially on these prongs. It's impossible. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of give these kind of long. So notice this has got a high shoulder, this has got a high flat side, and then it comes across over this stone. I want to cut probably about, I'm going to measure here just a little bit. I want to kind of go about 3 millimeters over this. All right, so I could mark that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on there. There. See, so I want you to notice I'm a couple millimeters onto the top of the stone. Now that's going to hold that stone in place really well. And let's see what I've got here. I've got, yeah, it looks like about 3 millimeters past the shoulder. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Make sure that this is in the right place. I'm just going to, this one I'm probably going to cut too long, only because, yeah, see, so notice I cut it slightly too long. I'd rather do that than have to come back and figure out how to set the stone properly with, there. See, so now notice I've got both of those prongs are even. We want to do the same thing on the bottoms. We're going to kind of look at this one and then look at this one. And want to cut it too long. So cut it a little bit too long. I may actually kind of keep it a little bit long just to get bottom support. That doesn't look too bad. I like that. So let's do the same thing here. We're going to cut it right about there. Make sure you cut the end. Okay, so these aren't even, so I'm going to cut this one just a touch. Just a touch. But yeah, cover your ends, point them down. There we go. So this is what our prongs look like. They look pretty good, I think. Let's look at them from the back. Yeah, pretty good from the back. So what we're going to do is clear some of this silver away. And I want to kind of open these prongs up. I'm going to open the bottoms. So I'm just going to pull this away. Got my WrapMakers. I'm just opening it just slightly because I want to take the stone out. We want to shape these, so just kind of wiggle your stone out as best you can. There we go. So now we got the stone out. We want to shape each of these prongs. There's two things you want to remember. We want to give them kind of a curve to them, and we also want to make sure that these ends aren't sharp, or we're going to really cut into anybody from the top. So I've got my needle file. I'm going to start on this top one, and I'm just going to just give it a shape. I'm just going to work with it. I'm just going to blunt this end a little bit. And you can do kind of whatever you want, but I'm just going to blunt these ends just a little bit. I'm only going to show you on this first one. When we come back, I have all 4 of them done. All right. So I'm just shaping this just a little bit at a time, just taking some of that sharp edge off. All right, so I'm on the last one, and all I've done is just kind of curved this. I'll show you in just a minute. I just want to make sure I got all of the sharp edges off here. You can't really see too well, but I've just slightly given these a curve. This one might be probably the best one. I've given them a slight curve. Just cleaned up this outer edge just to make it look better. So now we can put the stone back in. So I'll put it in top, and then we'll put bottoms in. Now we're ready. Actually, you know what? So that looks pretty good. So it looks good. What we want to do is I want to wrap this part here before I final set the stone. So we're going to put this in. We're going to leave this out rather, and we're going to final set our stone. When doing this, we're going to do two things. We're going to put a curve, an outward curve in these, and then we're going to bring them together in the center and wrap these two halves together. To do that, I'm going to grab my rawhide mallet. We're going to use a rawhide mallet. And we're going to use our ring mandrel. I'm going to set my ring mandrel here right about what the size I want to be making it. So we're making a 7, so I'm going to center another 7. I'm just going to push this out. And I'm going to give that bottom just a tap. All right, so this is what it looks like from the side. See how the big curve I put in there? Do the same thing over here on the other one. Center it on the sides we're going to be making it. Push the end down over. And we're going to just to make sure that it gets a nice tight curve in it. So you can't wear the ring this way. It's impossible. Well, it might not be impossible, but it would be uncomfortable. So we're going to grab these two ends and we're going to bring them here to the center. Just kind of work them to the middle. So we've got them in the middle. Notice there's a gap there. Take our WrapMakers and take that gap out. So we're just gonna squeeze these guys together, reshape them a little bit. Then reshape this one. Just taking some of that out. We want to wrap these two halves together so that it's just like that. But again, we need another piece of painter's tape to hold everything together. So I've got another piece of painter's tape here, and I want to kind of go to the side and to go in through the center. In through the center. My fingers are the way. In through the center. And I'm on the side here. And I want to push these together, and then I'm going to do this, and grab this one, and I'm going to do this. We want this to hold these pretty close together as we can possibly get them. I'll have to reshape some of this just a little bit. This one I didn't get shaped all the way. There we go. So this is what we got. So I got the piece of tape there, holding my two halves together. And we're going to wrap this together, and that gap's going to be there. Now, I want to show you a little trick when it comes to WrapMakers and a ring shank. Our ring shank is curved, but the WrapMakers pliers really don't do well with curved shapes. They never have. So the trick that I've got in order to hold it in, because what happens is when we're holding a curved object, the gap in between the pliers is a little bit larger than it should be. And that makes it so that the wrap wire won't stay in. So what I do is I take a piece of painter's tape. I'm going to put it in between the jaws. I'm going to take my, that's it, got it right just like that. Take my scissors wherever they went to. I'm just going to trim this off. And I want to trim this off. So I'm going to take up some of that space here in between the jaws, just a little bit. I'm going to cut this one. Let's see if I can get in here and cut this one. There. And here. All right. So we've got our tape. All the excess off. See, I just put some tape in there and just make sure it's kind of stuck down. And what that does is that does take a little bit of that gap out. So it makes it easier for us to use them. So let's go ahead. Let's set up our WrapMakers. Now we're only going to put a few wraps in. We only want to do this center section right here. So to wrap this, I want kind of a short piece of wire. So I'm going to cut probably about a 4-inch piece of wire. That's what we're going to work with, because we don't want anything too long, because we're going to be going into the center of the shank, and having too long of a wire is going to cause a problem with that. So take your WrapMakers and hold them just outside of this place you want to start your wrap. So I want to kind of put them right about here. And I'm going to take my wrap wire. I'm going to insert it into the tool in between the pieces of tape. So notice I'm in between the jaws, but make sure you go in between the tape. It's just going to take up that little bit of space. Put a little extra pressure on the handles. Curl it. So notice I'm curling it and I'm pushing it into the center. And I want it kind of tight up against there. So I'm going to pull and then bend it. So notice I pulled both sides together, and we're going to do another one. We'll do number 2. We're just going to keep wrapping. Here we're going to do, let's do 4 wraps. Let's go right into the center again. Let's pull it through. And I want to now move my wrap to where I want it to start. So I want it to kind of start right about here. So I'm going to wrap from here to right about here. And then I'm going to set it. So go ahead and set that first wrap. Once you get it where you want it, set it in place. Give it a good squeeze. Make sure not to distort it at all. But get your wrap just like that. Now take this beginning piece and tuck that into the center, because we're going to cut everything on the inside of the ring. So grab that and pull it through, and then set it again in place just to make sure. And now you can just continue wrapping. So we're just going to bring it around, go into the center, and then, and then make the wrap. And if you want, you can set these as you go. So you can just to make sure that it's where you want it, you can set it in place and then continue to wrap the next one. And just make sure you get your wraps one next to the other until you get to your finishing point. So let's check it and see. Okay. Just off, just ever so slightly. Okay, a couple more. I think I probably got about maybe 2 more, 3 more. Here. Just checking it to make sure that that's it right there. So I've got to put it on the inside of the shank, and use your tools if you need to here. So that looks about centered on here. If you take a look at it, it looks like that wrap is centered. And if you're a little off, like let's say I think I'm off on this side. So we're going to just finish one wrap on that side. I think I actually added too many wraps on the other side. I'm just going to take a look at it again. Very good. Yeah, that's what I want. So we're going to pull this away, and we want to trim this again, half the width of the frame. So just kind of work these in there a little bit and trim off your excess, flatten it down. Yeah, I didn't actually cut. I cut too long. Let's bring it up. You don't want to cut too long, because what will happen is it will cut someone. It will be very irritating to them. So you want to make sure, there we go, that you cut it in the right place. Do the same thing over here. And to cut it half the width. And once you get this set, you want to kind of feel it to make sure that it doesn't cut. And if it does, just take your needle file and file the rough edge off if need be. You want this to be comfortable for the person that's wearing it. Say someone did the same thing over here. So now take that rough edge off. Yeah, see, so that feels pretty good. Before we set the stone, we want to do one last thing. But actually, you want to take this tape off before you do the one last thing. So take your tape off and see. Use my WrapMakers here to grab it. Rip that tape off of there. There we go. Oops. All right. Tape's off. There. We want to give the ring its final shape. So I want to go down here, and now notice I was making a size 7, and I am right there on top of a size 7. And I just want to take and just tap this to make sure that it's rounded how I want it. So now it's shaped nicely. And the last thing to do is to set the stone. Setting the stone, very easy. So we're putting it in. We open the bottom ones out. So we're going to put that in there like that. And setting the stone, you want to make sure that you push this. Actually, check your prongs and make sure they're in the right place too. But we're going to take our WrapMakers. I'm going to take this tape off the inside of these WrapMakers so I can see what's going on. There we go. And we're going to, I always just kind of push it up against make sure it's sitting up against the prong. I want to take the bottom and hold it at the bottom of the prong and then the top. I just want to squeeze it onto the stone, just like that. And then we're going to go to the opposite side. So make sure that it's still up against that top one, the top prong that we just set. Make sure your prong is in the right place. Put the one jaw's at the bottom, the other jaw right at the top, and bend it onto there. And then we're going to go to the top of the stone right here. I'm going to push this onto the stone, and then we'll do the last one down here at the bottom. Make sure it's in the right place. Make sure it's up against it. And then we will push it onto the stone. And that is our finished piece. Take a look at your prongs. Make sure they're in the right place. Make adjustments if you need to. There. I think I've got everything pointing in the right direction. Just need to move just slightly. There we go. There we are. And that right there is our finished piece. Look at that. Isn't that great? Wasn't that an awesome statement ring? That thing is so big, that stone. It looked beautiful. If you had like a matching, if you had like a matching pendant with it, beautiful, wouldn't it? Statement pieces are really important. People really like them, and especially if you're selling your work at shows. Statement pieces are extremely important because that's going to catch buyers' eyes. That's going to draw them into your booth. That's going to make them buy that piece because it's unique, it's different, and they want it. So don't overlook your statement pieces, especially a nice ring like this, all right? So I hope you enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed making it. It got frustrating at times, but hey, we got through it, right? And that's the important thing. Take your time, do the work patiently. You'll make some really, really nice pieces. All right, well, I'm the WrapMaker, Jim McIntosh. Thank you so much for stopping by. And remember, people ask me all the time, how do you make beautiful jewelry? Practice, practice, practice.